with the first Coco Pincher book, I wanted to do something different. And I'd been living in Slovakia because my husband is Slovak. We've been living here for a few years. And I'd heard a lot of stories from Slovak friends of, kind of the rite of passage of young people was to go to England when you were like 18 years old, be an au pair or get a job and learn English sort of that way. And it was quite a hard way to go, not knowing any English. And I kind of thought, wouldn't it be really interesting if someone like that went to England, learned English, and then became a police officer? So that was the starting point. So as far as I'm aware, she's the first Slovak character that is in detective fiction, that is a detective in the English language, if that makes sense. And she was inspired by a couple of friends who, that was the starting point for the character. She's very, very direct, no nonsense, very much a kind of Slovakian way of seeing the world, very black and white. And I just thought that would be a great place to have her transplanted as well into England, into Great Britain, where people often don't really say what they think, and that would cause a lot of conflict and interest. So that was the starting point for Erika. It was taken more from the place of how the Eastern Europeans are, as people, are often not valued as much as Western people. That was the basic point of it. So I thought, what if there's a serial killer out there who's had a few victims who are Eastern European women, and then a very, very well-to-do young British woman from a sort of establishment family, she is then maybe the fourth victim, and how would that change the case? And that was the starting point. And then how the sort of the police would then go back and look at the other victims and how they didn't really bother about them. And so, yeah, that was the starting point for the story. And the rest of it was just made up. It wasn't based on any particular serial killer. And Erika has, like a kind of a side, well, she has a couple of sidekicks. She has that kind of Mulder and Scully relationship with them as well. Erika's the officer that works with her is Detective Inspector Moss, and she's kind of like also quite no nonsense. And what I love about this sort of running joke is that her name is Kate Moss, and she's had that kind of cross to bear throughout her time in the police force. And whenever she uses her name, it's sort of, she's got one of those names, like I suppose it's like being called Harry Potter or something like that. Someone always makes a comment, and she's always there to bring a lot of humor in, because Erika's quite a serious character. She's sort of there to bring a lot of humor into it, and I think through that humor and humanity, she really has become a favorite with readers. And then there's just the other. She's got like a team of like 5 or 6 police officers that she works with. Well, it changed my life in that I had finally had financial security after 18 years of renting and not having any money at all and really struggling. So in that respect, it was incredible. And then, but there was a lot of pressure. The one thing I'm so glad about was when I originally signed the deal, it was with a digital publishing house, and they obviously work a lot faster in terms of publication schedules. So the plan was to publish the first 3 books very close together. And I'm so glad that I'd finished the second book when the first book was published. So I kind of had that, I didn't have that crisis where I was like, oh my God, this is happening, and then I've got to go and write the second book. Because it was weird in that, I'd spent so many years trying to get people to read my work, and no one would, or, not having any success. And then this came along, and it was just, I think it just really took hold in a sort of a viral way, because the publisher were great. I mean, they wanted it to do the best, but there was no kind of plan for this to happen, and then it was just like a wave. It just kept going. So it was really, really incredible, and it was nice after having, over the years, been in so many meetings where people kind of tell you all this wonderful stuff is going to happen, that it doesn't, and then to have a really great group of people who are just quite cautiously excited, or moderately excited, and then it confounds expectations. So it was incredible. Wanted to get back to the series after, I think it was 3 years away, and I just had so many ideas, on a practical level, I thought, well, if I'm going to come back as a self-publisher, I'm going to do it with an Erika Foster book, because, you know, it's one that people really want to read. And it was one of actually 3 ideas that I had. So there's, you know, there's plenty more life left in Erika as well. Well, with Fatal Witness, during the pandemic, I really got into listening to true crime podcasts, because they kind of exploded. And there's so many great ones out there. And I just kind of was thinking, what if there was a true crime podcaster who, you know, I know some of them solve crimes, some of them kind of reenact crimes, and I just thought, well, what if this one had actually got very close to solving a crime, and then her life was cut short by the person who worked this out? So that was the starting point for Fatal Witness. And I said it was one of 3 ideas. I've always wanted to go back and write a book about what happened to Erika's husband, because he was the Girl on the Ice kicks off with the tragic death of her husband, and the guy, the people that did it have never been found, and I wanted to do that. But I thought, I need to come back. I can't come back with that, because it does delve very heavily into the past and previous books. So I thought I went with a kind of a more standalone story to come back for book 7. And then, so the next book, which I'm just about to start working on, will be where we go back and we see a lot of Erika's past having to be dredged up, and also she finally has the opportunity to catch the guy who killed her husband, which is very exciting to me. I've kind of been leading up to it over all the books. I've been consciously dropping things in each book, which will, you know, leave me breadcrumbs and clues that I can go back on.
Does it have a working title?
No, it doesn't. No, I find titles one of the hardest things to. It's kind of crazy. Like with 9 Elms, when I wrote it, it was the original title. I just grabbed a title out of my head, and I had a working title. It was called Shallow Graves, and I thought nothing about it. And then as it got closer, I realized that the publisher actually wanted to go with it. And for me, I didn't particularly like it. And I love that film, Shallow Graves. And for me, that's, you know, the ultimate shallow grave. So I didn't want to call it that. So then it's kind of weird in publishing, as you know, once either something's just accepted as it's going to be this, or then suddenly when it becomes everyone else's decision, it turns into this whole weird thing. So it went through so many titles, and, you know, I was coming up with titles, and eventually 9 Elms, you know, came along, and I can't quite remember how it did. So I'm never very good at coming up with titles myself. So that's something I'm going to have to work on.